Hello. This video will be about death and the lady. Or how the words equality and fairness can be used to justify the worst of human callousness from people who consider themselves to be the most virtuous and decent on this planet. The lady in question is Miss Mary Hassell, Senior Coroner for Inner North London. I must also make a nod to Dr. Stephen Pemberton, a working psychiatrist who earns a little extra money writing a column for the Daily Mail newspaper. More of him later. And now, back to Miss Hassell. Last week there was a bit of a fuss which got some traction in the British newspapers, all about the issuing of death certificates, which in the North London areas of Camden and Hackney appear to be taking more time than they should. First of all, I have to explain there are a lot of Jews and Muslims in Camden and Hackney, and this is pertinent because in Jewish and Muslim custom, when somebody dies, you're supposed to bury the body almost as soon as the breath has left it. Some, unfamiliar with these customs, might regard this rush to the grave as being a little on the abrupt side, but consider both Islam and Judaism originated in parts of the world where the air is often the temperature of boiling treacle. Burying a body quickly has to be a priority. I'm not just talking about the smell of decomposing flesh in a hot climate. Sorry if anyone's eating while watching this, but no, it's not just the smell, it's the pyrotechnics. When it's hot enough outside to air grill a steak, there's a serious risk of a corpse actually exploding as the internal gases expand in the heat. I believe that's what happened to the body of Henry VIII, by the way, even though he died in wintertime. Anyway, that practice of getting your dead safely stashed out of harm's way ASAP became a Jewish and then a Muslim religious practice which is still observed by them to this day. Oh, and before some nitpicker makes a comment below about the ancient Egyptians making a virtual theatrical production over their dead bodies, I would point out that the first thing they did was disembowel them. So, back to the North London coroner. In the UK, in which the majority follow a culturally Christian tradition, the slow production of a death certificate is generally not a problem, as it's quite common for a burial, or more likely a cremation nowadays, to be performed a matter of weeks after the deceased has shuffled off his or her mortal coil. This gives all the relatives time to turn up for the ritual tea and sandwiches and the general sniping over the terms of the will. And although this does not apply in the case of Jews and Muslims, the coroner, Mary Hassell, is not impressed. She recently put in place a set of bureaucratic procedures which, it is said, have delayed almost every aspect of the issuing of a death certificate. At the same time, she stolidly refuses to make any concessions to Jewish and Muslim funerary practices and insists there is no fast-track option for the dear departed's paperwork. In her words, no death will be prioritised in any way over any other because of the religion of the deceased. The cab rank rule is, according to her, the fairest way. It's that word fair that interests me because it crops up again in an article in the Daily Mail written by a regular columnist, Dr. Max Pemberton, who is, God help us all here in the UK, a psychiatrist. Dr. Pemberton puts it this way: Miss Hassel has refused to treat Jewish and Muslim bodies differently by releasing them early. Dr. Pemberton, the psychiatrist, doesn't seem to realise the difference between dead people, who one presumes are beyond care about paperwork, and the dead people's relatives, who are most likely going through one of the most traumatic experiences in their entire lives. And Dr. Pemberton continues, Miss Hassel is quite right, he says. His argument is that it is grossly unfair to do it any other way. All cases should be treated equally, that is, fairly. He uses those words a lot. It was no surprise to me to read that Dr. Pemberton, the psychiatrist, is employed by the National Health Service. The NHS is a great believer in fairness and inequality. It is so fair that a few months ago it refused permission for the parents of a baby called Charlie Gard to take their sick child for treatment in the USA, because if he got treatment that cured him, that wouldn't be fair to other children with the same affliction, whose parents might not be able to raise the necessary funds. Dr. Pemberton then goes on to state, and I kid you not, that if people get what he calls preferential treatment for the issuing of a death certificate, then this will set a precedent for people to get preferential treatment in the National Health Service. Let me repeat that. Dr. Pemberton believes that if your granny dies and you ask for a death certificate so you can bury the old girl straight away, that is the same as you demanding a mammoplasty next week so you can go on holiday in a month's time with a pair of pert new breasts bursting out of your bikini top. This man is a medical practitioner. Which university gave him his psychiatric diploma? The Hermann Goering School of Tolerance and Empathy? Dr. Pemberton ends his article thus: the argument over the early issuing of death certificates threatens to redefine our very understanding of those founding principles of the NHS: equality and fairness. I have a suggestion for Dr. Pemberton. I mean, why stop at the paperwork? It's the British custom to make a reception after a funeral at which one of the most common finger foods is ham sandwiches. In the interest of equality and fairness, maybe we should compel all Jews and Muslims to provide a ham tea for their guests. After all, why should non-believers have to suffer the depredations of religiously acceptable food? Also, well, why make any allowance for burials on certain days? If your dad is penciled in for burial in the Jewish cemetery and the diary just so happens to put it on a Saturday, well, that's just tough luck. The cab rank system, after all, is the most equal and fair. The fact that there won't be anyone around to bury him is immaterial. He'll just have to rot there until someone comes to sweep up the bits the rats leave. In fact, why have separate cemeteries? They're a colossal waste of space. We could be building skyscrapers on that land. We should just bundle all the dead bodies into large vats and boil them up to make Soylent Green. Think about it, that'll give us all a chance, an equal and fair chance, to participate in all funerals. Hey, it would even mean we wouldn't have to get out the ham sandwiches.